Good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting of USD 453 that was postponed for obvious reasons from last week. I'll now call the roll call. Mrs. Murphy.
Here.
Mrs. Overby.
Here.
Mrs. Price.
Here.
Mrs. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Wells.
Here.
Mrs. Wilson is absent. Excuse absent. And I'm Mike Carney. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. The mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Next item is scheduled patron input. We have two people that write. And we'll get started with, do you pronounce that Gallegos? Just a reminder before you get started, you have 3 minutes. You probably know that. You've been to most of the meeting. And you'll get 15-second warning towards the end. I'd like everybody to make sure you either silence your cell phones or put them on airplane mode or just so it's not ringing while we have the meeting on. Okay.
My name is Kelsey Gallegos. I live in Leavenworth. I have two boys attending David Brewer in the district here. I missed the last meeting, unfortunately, so I'm going to kind of try and sum up a little bit over the last couple meetings. I'd like to start talking about the IF policy and the material available in the school. I have many concerns on the transparency and accountability of the district and what they choose to provide. I would hope the new board will have a discussion before making any changes later on. I believe parents are in charge of what they include and exclude in their child's upbringing. When it comes to the district, I believe there's certain standards and boundaries that should be withheld with that. I don't believe, the harms of gender exploration and sexuality being introduced at such a young age concerns me as well as other parents. I don't believe I'm a closed-minded person. I've had pretty open conversations with many of the district staff here. But I've heard members say that if a child is old enough to ask a question, we as an educational body should have those resources available. Specifically regarding gender and sexual preference, it's not the district's responsibility to do so, in my opinion. Providing this type of material for 6-year-olds as well as middle schoolers who aren't fully developed both mentally and physically can be damaging. I believe the district has the obligation also as well of telling the parents that this type of material is available. When the assignment was in question, I believe they had the opportunity to do that as well, whether it was being taught or not. Lastly, I'm a little discouraged as a parent with arguments on what sexually explicit is. There's a book that has been checked out since October and is currently checked out. And I'd like to kind of find the educational benefit as well as it being provided to minors with no remorse, and what the district standards are and if there are any. So if I'd like to read a little bit here of the current book that is checked out. So, okay. So this is American Psycho. At her apartment, she lies naked on her back. Her legs are spread, and I'm on my knees giving her head while jerking myself off in the time since I've started licking and sucking on her pussy. She's already come twice, and her cunt is tight and hot
15
and wet.
seconds.
And I keep it spread open, fingering it with one hand, keeping myself hard with the other. I lift her ass up, wanting to push my tongue into her, but she doesn't want me to. And so I raise my head and reach over
Time's up.
into
There
her,
goes.
but she doesn't want me to.
Claire?
evening. I'm Jason Clare. I live in Leavenworth City and I have one daughter in the school system. I want to take a moment to thank the previous board for passing the sensible book restriction policy last month that helps safeguard our kids from exposure to adult situations that many parents do not approve of, and many are angry that this is actually up for consideration for repeal with the new board. And I hope that it's really considered and looked at very seriously. And again, to the previous board, thank you. Several people have reached out to me about a lecture that was given last past Thursday by an administrator. It was done in several classes, and so it was not like an isolated conversation. This was something that seemed to go through all classes that they had had. Here's an example of some of what was said, and incidentally, this is not an AP class, but this is what was said. This policy takes away the ability to teach AP content. Every text that qualifies as AP text is disqualified under this policy. Students will no longer receive AP credit. College boards will revoke certification. College professors want students who are exposed to a selection of diverse literature, which this policy reportedly will restrict. That's not really true. Either this administrator is ignorant of the policy and is ill-informed of its content, or they are purposefully misinforming children of what's going on with the school policy. And it kind of makes me wonder why we have such low grades, low attendance problems. Kids are not enthusiastic about going to school. Well, maybe it's because they're not being encouraged by their administrators. The same instructor in August introduced the class to the books that they'd be reading this year. And the way it was introduced was we'll be reading several books by old dead white dudes and one book that was written by a Chinese woman. And then the administrator apologized that the book selections would not be diverse enough, which kind of contradicts the diversity that is lacking because of this policy that's been implemented. We've got people that are going to tell us that we don't need these policies in place because we don't need protection from predatory behavior that is possible with these books that are in the libraries that the kids are having access to. And a bit of irony, the first book that was on this reading list happened to be Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit
15 seconds.
which is a book about banning books. So, it kind of makes you wonder if there's maybe an agenda here that's afoot that we're working with. And another interesting little fact, I looked on the catalog today. There's no books on President Trump in our library. There's only one title that's
Time's up.
missing. Thank you.
Adoption of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with a couple items removed. I'd like item number 3, the building report, removed, and item number 8, policy IF, removed.
A second.
Are you seconding it, Mike? or you
Yes, second. Vote. All in favor? No, one opposed? Okay. And the second one? Is that for both? Oh, for both? Oh, I guess I missed that. I guess you-
So,
Okay, we'll move on.
make sure I understand what you, so those are the two items
That are being removed from the agenda that won't be discussed tonight any further.
Oh, can I take those in?
So weren't we supposed to do it or were those part of the consent agenda or were those on the regular agenda?
They're part of the regular agenda.
So we need to do the consent agenda first before
Consent
we move
agenda
on.
is number 2. I'm on
Right,
item
she went ahead and removed
1.5.
it before we even made a motion.
No, you have to, can I step in? Thank you. Under the current agenda, the adoption of the agenda, which includes the consent agenda, has to be voted on first.
That's what.
And that's what the motion was for.
But
Was-
item 8 is not on the
Consent agenda.
consent agenda.
I'm not talking about
This wasn't about the
agenda.
consent agenda. If you look under section 1, 1.5, adoption of the agenda. It's the
Okay.
full agenda,
I
not
stand
just the
corrected.
consent agenda.
Okay.
I just
stand
wanted to
corrected.
clarify that.
I would like to.
Now to the consent agenda, correct?
Ms. Overby misunderstood and wants to change her vote. So to restate, I am asking to remove items 3 and items 8 from the agenda.
We need another motion.
You need a second.
Second.
It sounds like there was a change of Ms. Overby's vote, so I would just say for clarity, start it, which Ms. Wells has, a second, revote, and then that will be the final vote.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Three. Opposed?
If it's 3-3, it does not pass.
Yep, so I'm requesting some guidance here on how we can approve an agenda to move forward.
That's a good question.
I could approve the agenda without the removal of certain items.
But if it's still 3-3, there's not an approval going forward. You would have to, I'm really at a loss on this one. I mean, I don't know if you can continue going forward. You have
Robert,
to
am
wait
I-
till the next one.
Am I correct? That would end this board meeting?
I agree, yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't, if you can't agree to the agenda, you can't have the rest of the meeting. Everything would be pushed to the next one.
Where are we at? I couldn't hear what you were saying.
The agenda, so there was a motion to amend the agenda that has failed because it's 3-3. There's a second vote just to accept the agenda as is, and that vote is 3-3. Again, then there is no approval of the agenda. There has to be a majority. If the agenda is not approved, you cannot proceed with the meeting.
So can there be a motion of approve the agenda minus the building report? And then have that second and see what the vote is on that?
Absolutely. You
Of
can,
course.
you can have
Okay.
as many votes on how to amend this however you want, but if they all end up 3-3,
Right,
then we may have no meeting
action,
today.
right.
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda minus the building report. Second.
All four?
So I see a confused look on our new board member's face. Basically, it means now the agenda's approved minus the building report, but the if policy will be addressed.
Correct.
Okay, that's not, I understand. Okay.
So then there would be, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been stated for.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor? 6-0.
So are we calling Article 5, is that now Article 3?
It
would Or- stay-
It stays
It stays
4. It
five?
stays the
Okay.
same numbers.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So we're at the resolutions.
We are
Yes.
ready for item number 5, correct?
Okay. Resolution 23-24-18, 23-24-19, officer elections and meeting dates.
So just a little bit of context for you. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm looking to Beth to confirm, but the election cycle changed for board members, as you're aware. You used to be elected in April. Now you're elected in November. And so with that, the statute allowed you to realign when you reorganize in January. For years, I don't know how long, but several years, school districts have reorganized in July. And so you have the option to reorganize in January, or you can continue to do so in July. If you want to do so in July, you have to take the action here tonight. It is my recommendation that you continue to reorganize in July. That continues to align with the fiscal year, as well as several of our other processes and otherwise. And so it is my recommendation that you would pass these resolutions and move forward with reorganization in July of '24.
Motion.
Yep, so Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution, whereas KSA 2019 sub 72-1133 requires boards of education to elect the board president and vice president at the first meeting on or after the second Monday in January of each year or at a later meeting date during the calendar year, if so determined by the board at the first meeting. Whereas Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas must act each year on or after the second Monday in January or at a later meeting date during the calendar year to establish when it will elect its president and vice president. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of Unified School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas will elect its board president and vice president at the first meeting of the Board of Education in July 2024.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor? 5-1. Okay.
Second.
Hmm?
I'm waiting for it to load, I apologize. Mr. President, I move the adoption of the following resolution, whereas KSA 72-1138 requires Board of Education at the first meeting on or after second Monday in January or at a later date during that calendar year, if so determined by the board at its first meeting, to adopt a resolution to establish its regular board meeting dates, times, and location, as well as the alternative date and time in any meeting if the regular meeting falls on a Sunday or holiday. Whereas the Board of Education must act each year on or after the second Monday in January before February 1st of each year or at a later meeting date during the calendar year to establish its meeting dates, times, and location. Be it resolved pursuant to KSA 2019 sub 72-1138 that the Board of Education of United School District number 453, Leavenworth County, Kansas, at its meeting on January 16, 2024, does hereby adopt this resolution to establish the day, week of the month, time, and location for regular board education meetings and any alternate meeting dates to be held during the 24-25 school year at its July 2024 board meeting. If the established meeting dates fall on a Sunday, a legal holiday, or a holiday specified by the Board of Education, such regular meeting will be held on the day following, commencing at the same hour and location as detailed above. The Board of Education reserves the right to adjourn any regular meeting to another time and or date or place.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, all in favor? 6-0.
And Beth will have the copies for us to sign at the end of the meeting, so please make sure you sign those with the designated pin before you leave the evening tonight.
Okay, we're at item 6, I take it.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. And Mr. Sifford is in the back and requested if you can pull the mic a little bit closer for a few of you. He said we're having trouble picking up the audio and just a couple of you. So
Is that everybody, Brian, or do you need just certain people to pull it forward?
Mr. Zach, is that any better for you, sir? All right.
Are you there? Oh.
So several updates here for you. I want to make it clear, all of these are a first read. So with our regular cadence, we would bring these back to you in February for a second read. Would invite any questions tonight or throughout the next 30 or so days. As you have questions, to send them our way, and we will vet them with Robert, KSB, or otherwise.
And how do you want those questions posed, and where do you want them posed to?
Great question. So if you can get them to me via email, that is my preference, because then that allows me to have the paper trail to be able to send to all of you. So
And when is the deadline that you want us to have our questions to you by?
great question. So if I'm not mistaken, we have a February 12 agenda. So if we can cut those off by February 7, Wednesday, February 7. That work for everybody? Please and thank you.
And I just want to let you know, I already did a preliminary review of all those policies and provided some red lines that have been incorporated already.
Have you been able to review all of the policies at this time?
Yes, all of
Okay.
those that are the first read, yes.
Okay.
I worked with Jake and Brenda on those.
Thank you.
Okay, are we at 7? Book challenge?
Yep. So book challenge, level 3 decision. Just a little bit of context before I turn it over to Mr. Potter. This was originally received, I believe, in late August. The level 1 decision was rendered at the building level. The level 2 decision was rendered by myself. And so then when that was appealed for level 3, Mr. Potter was officially assigned as the district liaison, removing both myself as well as the building level decision makers. That review committee was assigned at the December board meeting. They've completed their work, and Mr. Potter is here to provide a summary of the review committee's recommendations and or decisions. Mr. Potter.
As Dr. Adams said, I helped to facilitate the process. I did not sit in on any of the committee meetings, so I can't speak to specifics of deliberations. I can share out that the committee was given some general parameters and provided policy IF in its current existence for them to follow and refer to. And other than that, they were really provided no additional stipulations or guardrails other than the request to provide a written report to this board within 30 days and a request to be an extension if they needed it because we're dealing with winter break and the holidays. And they met in person on December 15th and again on January 5th, at which time they finalized their report, which was provided to the Board of Education at that time. Each book was individually considered, looking for strengths, weaknesses, and overall purpose in the building library. And after each book was discussed in the context of policy IF, as well as previous propositions, at that time they made recommendations for each book. This is the first time in at least 15 years that I've been here that we've gone through this process. So this is brand new and certainly opportunities for lessons learned and possibilities for improvement moving forward. So because of that, there was no real recent template or precedent for the committee to follow. With that, another different thing to call out is in this case, the complainant wanted the book removed, not just from their child's library, but from all district libraries, which is why it proceeded through a 1 and 2 level of review and complaint. Level 2 on the book Rick by Alex Gino. The level 2 decision was to move this title from the elementary schools to the intermediate school based on level of maturity. The recommendation of the committee was to move the copies even higher, moving them to the 7-8 side of the middle school. In addition, they were not asked to do so, but they found additional titles by this author, which are George and Melissa, which could be considered as complementary titles. Their recommendation to this board is that those books also be moved to the middle school by the same author. Second title was It Feels Good to Be Yourself by Teresa Thom. Again, complainant asked for the title to be removed from all elementary libraries. Level 2 decision was for the book to be removed from the library and placed in the elementary counselor for parent, and that would only be made available with parent consent and advanced communication. In this situation, the review committee asked that the book be taken out of elementary circulation entirely and the title only be available for parents only. Students would no longer have the opportunity to check that title out. Finally, the third title was I Am Jazz by Jessica Herthel. Again, complainant asked for the title to be removed entirely from all elementary school districts or elementary schools. Level 2 decision was to make this title available with the elementary counselor and only available to students with parent consent. The review committee's recommendation is that this would no longer be accessible by students and restricted as parent only. And those were the entirety of the review committee's recommendations to the board.
So I have a question. A few months ago, and it was before you actually came on, I had made an observation that there were policies and data that would be on the agenda that was listed under executive content, but not public content. So it meant the public could not preview whatever policies we were voting on and discussing prior to the meeting. And it came to a consensus that we would have those things in public preview from now on. And when we got this agenda here, this book review information was executive content only. The public did not get an option to even get to see this. And I know that was one of the things I've gotten even from some of my biggest adversaries a compliment of having more transparency and those things listed. Is there a reason why, since there was nothing private, there were no names, no things like that on there, that this was maintained in executive content instead of public content, so this public could be aware?
Sure, valid question. So that was my decision. One, I would say, Mr. Potter alluded to it previously. No prior precedent or anything that I'm aware of that states whether it will be made available or otherwise. But two is because it was an individual decision, individual appeal. We kept that from the general public until the board had a chance to preview it.
But they don't know the individual. I'm just saying that it's going to be there, it's going to be out, but they would have been aware. That kind of leans into where some complain there's not enough transparency. And then we shelter something in like that. It's like it's got to be a big secret till we come in. And that's just why I wanted to go ahead and express my concern
Sure.
for that.
And I would be happy to change that procedure at the discretion of the board.
I think the books should have been made available publicly so that the community at large had an opportunity to see what was being challenged.
I'm not so sure about publicly, like as soon as the challenge comes in and going through that, I'm not seeing that standpoint, but I do believe the public had a right to see that this challenge was done, was going to be presented to the board, and they could say, oh, well, I see they're taking action on this. That way, if they did have public commentary, pro or con on that, they would have had that option. Because this was concealed in executive content only, the public did not get that right. And that is not how I feel. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but that is not how I feel we need to treat our constituents and our taxpayers and our parents. They've been asking 6 years that I've been on the board, but definitely since 2020 and COVID, for more transparency. And that just ended right here with this. So just my expression.
Thank you for your comments. I'm happy to adjust it. Again, we are very much learning as we go here. This is my first book challenge under Policy IF, and so very much making decisions based upon my interpretation of the policy, but happy to adjust our procedures as you see fit.
As the board, when we talked about this, we pretty much said everything needed to be put into public content unless it had to do with executive and privacy matters. And this did not constitute executive or private matters to do with staffing or student issues. So that was our impression, unless the board itself wants to change their mind about that now, is that we wanted those things for the public to see.
Thank
I
you.
would like those things for the public to see. As somebody who was sitting a couple years on the other side, there were a lot of times when the public is confused in what the heck we're talking about.
Thank you.
Yep, happy to adjust.
Thank you.
So this book is one of the challenge books. It feels good to be yourself, clearly written or attracted to, I would say, kindergarten and above. This is Ruthie, the first page, the only 3 words, so obviously targeted towards younger reading. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. This is Ruthie's brother, Xavier. Xavier is a cisgender boy. That means when Xavier was born, everyone thought he was a boy, and as he grew older, it turned out everyone was right. He is a boy. Boy is Xavier's gender identity. There are so many different ways to be a boy or a girl, too many to fit in a book. But not everyone feels like either a boy or a girl. Non-binary is a helpful word. It can describe a kid who doesn't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. And I'll stop here on this page. This is Ruthie's friend Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. So the reason that I didn't vote, I'll just restate for clarity, to pass the IF policy like we did last month sooner in the year was because complete garbage like that shouldn't even be in the high school. It's total garbage. It has one goal, and that's to make sure it can confuse children or further confuse a child who is already questioning life or their identity, etc. And so what frustrates me about this challenge result is that I'm, interested to see what goes on in a counselor's office apparently, but it gives the impression that if a student has questions, they will be further misled by the time they get to the counselor's office. And I would also offer up to the board to please explain to me how it works if you do not identify, let's just go this way. If you identify as the last character as a boy and a girl, how does that work? The book goes on further to explain that you might be a boy one day, a girl the next, etc. So can you explain to me how you would have a family unit that was stable in raising children? I mean, if I decide to be a boy tomorrow, that's going to turn my child's world upside down. Any stability that may have been in my household is not going to be there anymore. I am Jazz. Had an interesting page as well. Every page is interesting. So this is just for some context so people can understand. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver. And my third favorite color is green. Here are some of my other favorite things: dancing, singing, backflips, etc. Favorite best friends, my best friends are Samantha and Casey. We always have fun together. However, I'm not exactly like Samantha and Casey. I have a girl brain, but a boy body. This is called transgender. I was born this way. When I was very little, Mom would say, "You're such a good boy." I would say, "No, Mama, good girl." So now we have a child telling their parent their sex. That's interesting. And so it begins to play out how a male is wanting to be a girl in the way that he dresses and such things like that. And eventually they allow him, through the coaxing of a physician, to be able to play in girls' sports, even though he is a male. So again, a book written for children. Rick is the third one. I am on page 71. I have not finished reading this book, but so far have come across how, since the child is confused, is going to check out the local LGBTQ plus club for direction. That's all I have to say right now.
So technically, you do not need a motion to accept it. You just need to be prepared if and when this individual decides to appeal the decision. The next level is coming to you. You could take action tonight, not accept the report, and just move straight forward with board action. But I would encourage you to let the process play out as is written. Thank you, Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
With item 8,
So I would just like to say the reason that I asked to have this item removed is if we are going to consider changing this policy, knowing that Mrs. Wilson was not going to be here tonight, that is the reason that I asked to have it removed, for the full board to be here to have consideration for the policy going forward.
My reason for leaving it on here is because even if Mrs. Wilson was here, I would have had it listed rather an action item as a first read, because we do have 2 board members that are new who have not had the option of a first read to go through it, just because they may have sat on that other side for several board meetings or 1 or 2, they would have needed the option of doing the first read. So then that way tonight we could sit here and do it as a first read. And if there needed to be any public commentary, based on that, or if anybody wanted to go ahead and vote on it, we could still vote on it.
Do we need to make a motion to change it to a first read or just take it as a first read?
Yeah, you would need a motion to do it as a first read because it's listed as an action item. Go ahead. I heard you, Rob.
That's
I
right.
heard you.
I don't think, because although it's an action item, you don't have to have a motion. I think you convert it to a first read. I don't think you have to necessarily vote on it to be a first read.
Okay.
I think you can label it as a first read, knowing that you're going to review it next board meeting.
I think that's gonna make it a first read.
So if we vote on it though, because that's still an option of it, and it goes like the original vote on the agenda and it's 3-3,
It
it
failed.
stands as it is.
It stays, yeah, the motion fails. It would stand as is.
And then it would be somebody else bringing it back up again the next month or the next month.
Correct. Any of you have the right to bring it back up as often as you like.
So Judy, I was wondering, since my understanding through Dr. Adams is that you wanted these changes, could you justify for us why
Sure.
it feels good to be yourself should be first grade reading?
Well, first off, I'm not looking at specific books. This is about picking books and about appropriateness. Appropriateness was the word that kept being used. Excuse me, and appropriateness actually is not in the policy as written. So that's where I went back and said that we're gonna have the appropriate staff members to ensure appropriateness of the content. We hire professionals to go through these books and do these things.
Right, they're the
Let's let
ones that bought
professionals
these
do it.
books.
I get that. That was
Okay.
prior selections, prior processes, whatever. So if we're looking at appropriateness, let's put it back to our professionals, our staff, to be those appropriate members to go through and figure out what is appropriate.
So you will not
And by-
answer whether you believe this book is appropriate for first grade?
I'm not saying that right now at all, no, because I'm not doing that right now. The policy is,
Just to clarify.
is the policy about picking appropriate books. Okay, so let's make it appropriate. So how do we make it say it's appropriate books? Well, by saying ensure appropriateness by content, which negates a lot of the other stuff in there that kind of, some of it would take out a fair amount of our books, but also going back and enumerating what standards, if you will, would say these books are appropriate. So by going out and instead of just saying, okay, we're gonna look at these books, but go back and actually say, what are those professionally prepared tools? So going back and saying, okay, use the American Library Association tools. They've got things. Use Tidal Wave, use the AP reading list, use those things that already exist in our processes,
But those,
our handbooks.
yeah, those
That are
things
the
you just
standards.
listed would say that this book is appropriate for first grade. The ALA would
And
say.
I get it, but it's not just a one time, they just don't do it one place either. They're gonna look at multiple places. And if they go through and they're all right, this is not appropriate for our first graders, great. Then don't put it all available for first graders. Make it only available for whatever grade is deemed appropriate when they buy the book.
So I guess I'm struggling between how what you're saying now is different from what we had in November.
What we had in November didn't have those additions. And I think what we had before didn't say anything about appropriateness. So that's our issue. What is appropriate?
So you're saying
Well,
that
I'm just
our-
saying use the word, what is appropriate, and put it on our professionals, those people that we hire.
Yeah.
To determine that.
So you think they bought a book that they thought was not appropriate for first grade?
I am not saying that at all, because that was bought under a different policy, different whatever.
But I mean, people, staff, professionals that you're speaking of bought all three of these books and they decided that they were appropriate for first grade. And so what I'm struggling to understand is how what you propose identifies for them that it is not appropriate for first grade or second grade or third grade or fourth
Because they're
grade.
not gonna look at just
Can
one
I
place.
add to that too? Because I don't understand how, if we're talking about what are appropriate standards, the action item here was to remove those guidelines.
And just
So
go
I
back
don't
to general
understand how we're
appropriateness.
deciding what's appropriate.
Because I
when
think
we
some of
remove
these
the
guidelines sanction bigotry. And when you talk about gender identity, just me saying I'm a woman, that's my gender identity. How many books out there talk about being man, being a woman? They don't go into any of the other stuff. You've just negated so much of our ability of what we can use for appropriate literature. So instead of going by some kind of politically motivated, buzzwords, whatever, just go by what is appropriate. Do I think appropriateness is a gender identity book okay for kindergarten or first grade? I don't know, because I don't know the book in question. And I'm not looking at any specific books, I'm just talking about policy.
So who
The policy
decides,
exists.
who
the
decides
policy exists to do
appropriate
that.
though? Who's,
Well, didn't we list pornography as one of them? And clearly the book American Psycho that was just read to us, read like a penthouse forum plus some, which would be labeled pornography in literature. So it would not be appropriate to it. And that's one of the
And
points of the
that's-
guidelines. If I may
right.
finish, one of my points of the guidelines, you say, would we have professionals? You're absolutely right. We do have professionals. And they even have guidelines. So because I
Apparently not.
suspected this was going to be happening, I went ahead and went through beyond just our policies, but go with our student handbooks and our professionals handbooks. And we explicitly state they cannot have slurs, cuss words. I know a child that got dress coded because they were wearing a religious T-shirt that with a menorah on it that said, Jews do it for 8 nights, and told, oh, you can't wear that because that infers sexual. It doesn't infer sexual. So you've got it on one end where our dress code is so far extreme that you're going to disenfranchise a religious group and accuse it of being sexual, but then you want to open the door of not being able to say we have the right to say there is no pornography. So we're not wasting our taxpayers' money to buy a bunch of books so they can turn around and get challenged every time we turn around. I mean, that is a ridiculous expense for the monies that we have. So that's a reason there. If you turn around, we also have policies besides the dress code. It was mentioned in here that in some cultures, public displays of affection are deemed inappropriate in those cultures. Well, it's inappropriate in our handbook. It says you will not have PDA. And I know some educators have gone literally ballistic because a young man kissed a girl on the forehead. Berated, harassed, and humiliated her in front of the classroom. This might have been between 2008 and 2011, but it still happened. So it goes to say, you've got this set of standards here, and you're going to walk that line of strictness to where they could even be expelled if they kept doing it. But you don't want to set standards for what their education material or entertainment material is in the library.
I'm not saying that we're not setting standards. I'm saying that we go by what's available as professional standards. And those things there, and realize that these things are flagged, and they'll say, this is why it's being banned other places, whatever reason. And that should be cause for us to look at it in depth of, well, do we need that book?
And
I get that,
the board,
but that's there.
the board sat here and felt that it was appropriate to add those little things to give them some extra guidelines so that we would be assured that they were doing that before the purchase of the books. If we go back to the original one, like you're proposing here, then all those safeguards are completely gone and taxpayer money could very well be wasted.
I don't think they're all gone. Because, like I said, those books do have their tags, their information for things that they should be aware of. Just like in the movies, it says be aware of adult content, language, whatever. Those sources do the same
Well,
thing.
those tags did not
And
work for that
realize-
purchase
Yeah.
there.
And that was not our policy
Hilarious.
either. So those were purchased prior to. I get that.
but
I
again,
get
you're saying that the staff we have that bought these books either did not understand what appropriate was, or they were buying things that they knew were inappropriate.
I don't think that was the case at all. Because there was something there that said it was appropriate. But our policies also evolve and change. I get that. And so do their ratings. And so do all the other issues with what's here. But I think the bigger thing too is that when we look at what's in there for books, okay, if you want to go back and put some of those things in there, maybe they need to be reworded. I get it. But I don't want to sanction bigotry on behalf of the district. I don't believe in that. I don't think that we, as board members, need to be in the approval process for getting the books. For like when it says prioritization for options required. If you put us in the approval process for the books, then you just negated any ability for anyone to challenge a book. Because we already said we approved it. We're the final say in this district for what gets approved for books.
Well,
So-
we had this policy that you want to reverse back to in place when the Fire Force series was bought, and we already know what happened with that. So, and those books clearly come with warnings that they are explicit, sexually explicit.
And I don't know who all checked them out either. I can't say. But I know that there are lots of things in here
But it was
that
the
we need
fact
to
that it was
clarify.
purchased to begin with.
I
And
get it.
that's what we're trying to safeguard against, and that's what
Then we can add those pieces in. That's fine. But I don't want to
Well, I thought-
overstep it to go to the extreme of negating books that we use for literature for whatever reason. But I think it also needs to be that the district staff, our professionals, it's on them to screen, it's on them to approve, not for the district board. And that's where I made clarifications too. And then if you're going to challenge materials, they need to be within the district, because as it's currently written, you could live anywhere, and challenge a book in our district. So I think we need to clarify that. I added changes to the district committee, the committee itself, that we went back and used the selection criteria that we did when we sat down to do the book review, the policy review. I added that, and I changed it to 7 members, because when you have a board or any group that's six members, it can totally deadlock, and an even number is not a great plan for any kind of community or any kind of committee. So I added an additional community member to the committee.
Can I speak to that? I have some text changes, proposals. One, I want to talk about, because you talk about the professional organizations that our librarians or our district staff is using to make their appropriate choices. The word unbiased in selection criteria, media center materials, I propose that word be deleted, because all of these organizations, especially the American Library Association, is not an unbiased professional organization. There's at least 3 states, Missouri, Montana, and Texas, who have disassociated with the American Library Association over their political agenda. Their president is an open Marxist who has called on librarians repeatedly to be activists. Here's a nice quote from her. Emily Drabinski is her name. "We need to make trouble, good trouble, the kind of trouble that matters, the kind of trouble I became a librarian to get into, and we need to make it together." I don't know how that's an unbiased professional source. There is another organization called the World Library Association that is a professional organization of librarians, and let's see, they say librarians to curate valuable reading materials for children and maintain public space that promotes information literacy and political neutrality. So as the text here, I would propose that the word unbiased be stricken. And at the very least, if those other ones are going to be listed, because all of them have a political agenda, as far as I can tell, especially the American Library Association, but add the World Library Association. So at least in the interest of diversity of opinion, that organization could be consulted as well, because they may have different recommendations. Most likely they will.
I think that's our argument to make this a first read.
I have a couple other suggestions if we can.
Sure, I'm just saying, but if you're going to make suggestions, then that basically makes this a first read.
Okay.
So what this was going to be about was whether we went back and voted to do what Mrs. Price had and basically go back to what it was before it was voted on previously. Basically puts it back to the original policy before everything in the red was added.
Which was
Right.
non-existent.
Right. Which is, I would not be in favor of that.
Well, that's what they want the first read on, to pretty much eradicate everything that was put in previously with all the safeguards.
If we do it as a first read, though, just to clarify this, as a first read, anybody can propose revisions in order for the next board meeting to propose. So Mrs. Overby, if you have additional revisions that you want as a
I
first
do.
read, you technically could have two different versions presented by two different people to vote on by the whole board at the next meeting.
Or we could vote on it this, go into a gridlock at 3-3 and then turn around and they can turn around and start deleting what they wanted to try and, remove what they tried to pull, add what they want to add.
I'm not going to speak to any of that. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I know what the vote's going to be. But
I'm just
if
going
the
based
vote-
on what
if-
it was with the agenda.
if the vote is a 3-3, it would not pass. Whatever's presented in front, the current policy would stand. And if anybody wants to present at the next board meeting, they would contact district leadership in order to present that on the next agenda. However, what the revision, whether it's Mrs. Overby or whether it's Mrs. Price or Mrs. Wells.
So we're not discussing my proposals right now. I would do that
You can.
next time.
You
Okay.
can, it's just that,
You-
I'm
you-
saying you're making the argument that this becomes a first read, not a vote.
Okay.
Because you want to make changes. So it should be a first read.
Correct.
Provide your changes.
But you can still discuss your
Sure.
changes today, but then they'll be also, I assume, discussed again during the next board meeting if you decide to do a first read on the proposed changes that you're making.
Okay.
Would you have changed anything that was in the original that they have read it and written out?
That was in the red. That's,
Yeah, that's basically what this vote is, to remove everything that was in the red.
well, the one thing that I would say about that, let's say, this policy to me seems a little flawed, a lot flawed. And let me make sure I'm precise when I say this. I think the prioritization process, all of that with the board, that could be streamlined because that looks like it could be a time suck with all of those layers of approval. And so I would make that change. That could be streamlined a little. And maybe the high school criteria could be clarified a little bit if there's a concern that that some of the books, the classics would not be, I don't understand that, but perhaps that could be clarified a little bit. As far as text changes specific, if you go to the review committee section, I would propose that the makeup of the review committee be changed from one district leadership team member, media specialists, 2 subject area specialists, and 3 community members to 1 district leadership team member, a media specialist, or a subject area specialist, because I'm guessing this is going to be a library materials or curriculum materials. So either or, and 5 community members, or in the alternative, if you couldn't find 5, 3. And the reason is, if a challenge goes all the way to a review committee appointment, we already know what the district said. We already know what the complainant said. It hasn't been resolved. It's going all the way up to this is the last level. Okay, so in the interest of fairness, because there is a wide range of attitudes and opinions within the broader community, I don't think that review committee should be stacked in favor of the district. Because it's kind of a foregone conclusion if you put that 4-3, the district's already said what their position is. And the complainant is not satisfied with that. So we're at an impasse. So I don't think that's fair to stack that committee in favor of the district. I would add more community members, put them in the majority, because you don't know. You don't know. There's a very wide range of opinions on these things. The other change I would make on text is On selection criteria for review community members, it says must be a legal guardian, a parent or legal guardian of students currently enrolled in USD 453. And I propose that be changed to must reside in USD 453. I understand why you'd want to limit it because you don't want anybody coming into your district and challenging your books and some activist group or something. So you want to, I understand you want to limit it. But I know this from recently campaigning. There are a lot of parents who don't want to who don't want to take the lead on some of these challenges because they're afraid for their student. You open it up to the community. You have grandparents, you have other taxpayers, you have community members that may have the time to pursue that, may not feel that that they're afraid they're going to cause problems for their student, and they're paying for this. So they're part of the community. So I would open that up to not just being a parent of a current student.
Just realized that we were talking about amendments last month, was like, let's use the committee setup that we used when we did the original IF policy committee review, and that's just mirroring that. So just let you know where that came from. It wasn't just somewhere out of the blue. It was from a prior standing committee.
But I would like to see that change.
Sure, I'm just saying that was
Yeah.
where it came from.
So what's going to be the easiest thing? Go ahead and put it forward for a first read and try and rewrite the whole thing again. Re-adding some of the red, deleting some of the black, or vote to put the vote forward to approve it the way it is, see where that vote stands, and then move forward from there, see if it gets reapplied onto the agenda next month.
Because she wants to make changes to it, so I think the first read. So the others can make comments. I don't know what Mrs. Wilson wants to say. I know she did want to discuss it.
Right. No, I know. She talked to me. She heard me.
So I would just say we take this as a first read and then inputs from everybody by whatever date.
Well, I've listened to quite a bit here, and there's a lot of things we could talk about all night, but the one thing I don't like, and I wrote back to you when you brought this up about the 5 committee members, you use that term stack. We're not stacking to do anything out of the ordinary. And it's not being, like I said, if you want 5 community members, then you're stacking it with community members who have.
But that's the unknown, though.
Well, I know,
They've already stated their position, because we're at this.
I know, but we're
final
paying people to do what they do. And if this has really happened, what class was that in?
These would be library books.
No, but who was teaching it? Was anybody teaching it?
The teachers have access to the
Okay,
library.
they got access to it, but were they teaching the kids that? No.
How do you know that?
Well, tell me who it was. We can't do that now.
The point is, it's.
I know the
It's
point.
a
I know what the
viewpoint.
point
You
is.
either think it should be taught, because any single book that's in the library should be open to the
I'm not
teachers
saying that.
and should be classroom acceptable. If it's not classroom acceptable, it shouldn't be in the library. It's that simple.
Okay. That's your opinion.
I mean, what do you think?
Well, I've said this before, people that don't experience things like having gay kids or kids that are transgender have no clue, and it exists. And they're not evil, they're not creeps, or whatever.
Mr. Carney, I will say right here and right now, I do not whatsoever at all appreciate you making assumptions about other people or their family members. Please do
I'm
not
talking
do
about
that.
my family member.
Well, I'm talking about mine.
Well, okay,
Please do not act like the only reason someone could possibly be against complete garbage like this is because they haven't had the same life experiences as other
no,
people.
that's not what I'm saying. Let's move on.
So are we taking this as a first read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item. Where are we at, 9?
Yes, so number 9 represents a current conflict for 5 members. And so we wanted to get in front of this due to scheduling. So we need to look at an official change for the April Board of Education meeting date. Originally scheduled for, sorry, I had it up. How about April 8th? And I believe we have listed 5 potential dates. And so for the sake of efficiency, we wanted to reach consensus and get that officially changed and then let Beth do what she needs to do on her end for publication and otherwise.
I have no conflicts with any of the proposed dates.
Okay,
I have no conflicts. Any of the dates are good for me.
I don't have any
Anybody have a
conflict.
conflict? You want me to just throw a date out and we say yay, nay, or what? Is April 11th okay?
so yeah, I guess I should
I
clarify.
would prefer us to try and maintain our Mondays.
Okay, what date would you like?
Yep, I guess I should clarify. If we go with the 15th, it would have a conflict. I think Mrs. Batson's willing to rearrange. I'm looking for her confirmation, but we would have a conflict with a couple of you. District Site Council, right? District Site Council. So as long as you're willing to rearrange and Mrs. Batson's willing to rearrange, I'll let her work on the Site Council and we would take the 15th for the board meeting. Does that make sense, Karen? Judy, I'm looking at you too. Mrs. Batson, are you okay with that? Okay. So I would propose the 15th. That keeps with your Monday cadence, simply 1 week later. And then Site Council members, be on the lookout for the amended date there. Beth, what else do you need?
Do we need an actual vote? Or just an agreement?
Consensus?
I'd like to propose that we move April's meeting date from April the 8th to Monday, April the 15th.
Second.
No, you're fine.
Got it.
Wells Price.
So,
We need a vote? Yes.
we vote on?
Yep.
Oh, okay, we vote on that? All in favor? Gee, 6-0. We got our calendar right.
All right, the next one, I'll be honest, I've been looking forward to for a while. So if you would focus your eyes in front of you, I know the crowd can't see it, but you'll be able to see it shortly when we update the back wall. You should have a strategic plan focus area. It's going to continue to be in front of you for all board meetings. This is the work of Mr. Bodensteiner and crew, and I will say they have exceeded my expectations. But this effectively becomes our dashboard moving forward. So item 10 would continue to be a regular item on each and every board agenda. So I'm looking for Mr. Potter to confirm, but he and I are going to kind of go back and forth tonight. We're certainly learning as we go here with this being brand new, but the intent is really twofold. One, tell you what has been updated each month. In some cases, these are semi-annual. Some cases they are annual. Some cases they are quarterly, et cetera. You get the point. And then 2, we're not going to focus on every one of them, but rather pull out one to kind of dive into, and then obviously allow time for questions and or discussion. So Mr. Potter, I'll turn it over to you.
So for our visual learners, I want to continue to familiarize how to navigate on the web to get to this information. There's the main website, USD453.org. You're going to hover over About Our District and then find Mission, Vision, and Strategic Plan. That's your landing page. This, if clicked, is going to launch the full approved PDF document. And what we're talking about is the ongoing, more fluid dashboard. From there, you'll see each of the 5 areas of focus, and you have a couple of ways that you can navigate right here for any area of interest, as well as the sidebar to your left. And for planning purposes, this would be the tentative report out, is this next PDF. So it shows by month, some of these are standing when data is readily available, whether that be by quarterly or annually or a couple of times a year. And note that this is subject to change. So if for some reason ACT results are a week or 2 late, they would come to the next month. So as you're kind of previewing what the month ahead is, you could at some point, if you have an area of interest and know that it's not going to be available till February, you check back for updates at that point in time. In red is going to be a call out for a board report. Any of that might be in a Friday review, or it could be in this setting where you get more of a substantive update. And we're going to highlight for this, as was pre-scheduled, student average daily attendance. And you see from the strategic plan specific focus, it's student engagement. So you've got a couple of different ways to get there. I'm going to go with the largest font possible, student engagement support services. There is all the action steps replicated from that PDF document. And you see a number of different reports, so you can spend as much time as you like in any of these areas. And specifically, I would say what Ryan Bodensteiner and James Perry have done is to try to make this information as quickly navigable as possible. Because if you spend any time at all on the State Department of Education site and look for Leavenworth, there are like lots of different clicks, and it can be overwhelming. Specifically, the goal is to limit the number of slides here to 1 or 2 or 3. So it's a very broad highlight level situation. And without getting into the weeds on this specifically, because it's a feature, I'm going to invite Mrs. Batson to join me, and she can help to talk through what this specific report is telling you and how it compares to an update from the last time we did this.
So the first thing I want to kind of point out is your average daily attendance and chronic absenteeism are 2 different measures, okay? So they will look very different. Our average daily attendance, you'll see we're averaging right at about 88% of daily attendance in any given building. Of course, some days we're way over 88%, and some days we're way under 88%. But on average, that's where we are. When you break that down as a district, K-12, you will see that we have about 35% of our students have attendance 95 to 100% of the time. So those students at this point have been here 95% of the days or higher. We have in yellow the 90 to 95%. We have about 26% of our students who are reaching that. And then beyond that, red, that's lower than 90%. Those are students that we would consider by the state definition chronically absent. Remember, chronically absent means a student is absent for anything other than a school event. So don't think about it when JROTC goes to nationals or basketball players are in the playoff or something like that and they're missing school. That's coded as a school activity. But when a student is sick, obviously we need them to stay home, right? That counts as an absence. When a student is an out-of-school suspension, that would count against chronic absenteeism. When a student is taking a family vacation, it counts as chronically absent. Any piece of that counts as an absence. Once you get over the 10% rule, you fall into that red category. And then down across the bottom, you see that broken down by grade level. Each of our administrators once a month get a dashboard that goes very in depth with their building specific chronically absent and ADA, average daily attendance, data. Broken down by subgroups, broken down by grades, broken down by grade level, classroom, all of that. So I'm open to any questions about our ADA data today.
I think it's important on any graph that we have on our site that we have the date that data was captured.
Okay, and we'll try to, James Perry's amazing at that. As you can see, it's on there. This was as of December 21st. So we'll try to continue that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jake or I? Again, this is going to be on the agenda each month. The other thing I'm going to draw your attention to is on the agenda, and it should be both executive content as well as public content, is we're going to try to put the strategic plan focus area or areas on the agenda that we believe that links to. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll continue to see that. Some cases it's not going to apply, or in some cases it may be 1 or 2. But we're going to continue to try to keep that at the forefront of our board agendas and our work here, as well as with our district cabinet. And then in the back here shortly, Mr. Potter's team will have those updated for you as well. So looking forward to where we go from here. Yep. Thank you for that, Mr. Carney.
Can I say
Oh,
one more thing
absolutely.
about the strategic plan on the online tools that we've got? So when somebody from the community, like myself, our website, even though we've made great strides, it's still not the easiest to find exactly what you're looking for. If somebody is trying to find something specific and they are unable to find it, what is the best resource for them to be able to, do they call, do they ask for somebody to say, hey, I'm looking for this information and I can't find it. Where do I find it?
I'd say three things. One, there's a search bar on the website. You
Okay.
can type in your specific item. Secondly, there's the chat bot that usually pops up on the bottom right. You can try that. And thirdly, the general contact us email goes to me directly,
Okay.
and I answer it 7 days a week.
And if somebody is finding that none of those things are working for them, what is their next steps out of being online?
The third would be me, and I would hope that I would direct them accordingly.
Anything else on 10? Thank you for those questions. All right. I have a couple topics here for you tonight.
Okay.
The first of which is probably timely as it relates to our inclement weather. So we thought we'd use tonight as an opportunity to just review those procedures for purposes of recommunicating. Because I'm guessing we're not at the end of this winter weather season. So just a couple things. First of which is if and when school is canceled, notification will be posted to our website, the district Facebook, Twitter, sorry, it's now referred to as X, my apologies, still getting that, as well as our auto dialer and email system and our local news media reports. To be clear, if and when we are open as scheduled, we do not make a notification or announcement. So we don't say, hey, we're going to have school tomorrow. If there is not a notification, assume we have school. And for purposes of everybody's planning, if I make a decision the night before, it will be made by 9:00 p.m. That way we capture those that have maybe an earlier bedtime or otherwise. If we make a morning of or day of decision, it will be made by 5:00 a.m. So in the case of last week, I think we made those both before 9:00. But if there's no weather and it moves in, say, late or early, I should say, in the morning, we would make that by 5:00 a.m. So there's kind of this window, if you will, in which we're not going to communicate. We don't want to try to be sending a message at 1:00 in the morning.
So if families haven't heard by 5:15, you've got school.
That is accurate.
Okay.
Yep. If and when school starts as scheduled, we don't dismiss early. I have a firm belief that if we've gotten you safely to school, the worst thing we could do is try to send you home early. And so parents and guardians are always welcome to check your child out of school if you believe that sending them home early is the plan. But as far as the district, we will not send students home early. On days when school is closed for snow and road conditions, we will also cancel that day's practices and events. There will be sometimes a rare exception to that. But generally speaking, if it is unsafe to put students on the road or buses on the road here in Leavenworth, I also believe it's unsafe to put them on I-70 to head to Topeka for a basketball game. If and when school is closed for wind chill, like you saw today, we will be looking specifically at a threshold of -15 degrees. That aligns with the National Weather Service and what I call the 30-minute threshold. The idea being that anybody that's out there walking, waiting at a bus stop, et cetera, may be exposed up to 30 minutes. And so -15 degrees is the general threshold there. This obviously aligns with the increased risk of hypothermia. And again, is due to the large number of students that we have walking and or waiting at bus stops. And then again, if school is closed due to wind chill, there is a potential, and I want to emphasize that, the school events could proceed as scheduled because the argument of the unsafe road is now out. And so I am more comfortable putting students on a warm bus heading to Topeka than I would be if the road was slick. Does that make sense? I would stand for any questions on that before I move to the second. Great. All right, this is to alert everybody in this room and watching online. So I'm going to take a chapter from the Leavenworth Lancer Chamber of Commerce. So thank you to them for their inspiration here, but we will be starting a series of monthly school community coffees at our office this spring. And so we're hopeful that this represents an opportunity to share information, engage with community members, and as you all know, receive input from you all regarding school board, district topics, building specific topics or otherwise. So we're going to do 3 for the spring semester. They're all going to be from 7 to 8:00 a.m. Because we want to be cognizant of people's work schedules and otherwise. So the first one on your calendar, if you want, is Wednesday, February the 21st, followed by March 27th, and then April 24th. So you'll see a monthly cadence there. I'm looking to Mr. Potter for confirmation. We'll make that well-known on social media and otherwise. But again, we welcome anybody in this room or listening online.
Where you planning?
Mr. Potter, do we have a specified location yet? Right here for the first one? Okay, so we're gonna start here. And then I will tell you, just to give you a preview, I'm gonna be looking for community partners that are willing to host us, because I would like to go out to those places, again, insofar that they're able to accommodate that request. But I think it'd be good to meet at some of the other places. But to get started, we're gonna do it right here at the district office. Thank you. Third topic is on special education. So here very recently on Friday, January the 5th, our Assistant Director of Special Education, Dr. Rebecca Varvel, I think she's in the back there, and I had the opportunity to provide testimony about our district's challenges and opportunities to the legislature's Special Education Task Force. I was very proud of Dr. Varvel for the testimony that she provides and her advocacy for those students. Additionally, I want to let you know that we're also collaborating with a number of other districts throughout the state to distribute information as part of the Did You Know series. And so you can find it by searching the hashtag DYK Kansas Kids and showing on the screen, right? Yep, there it is, as an example of what you can expect. It's intended to be black and white, factual report out to help inquiring minds better understand the functions of our district in a visual by the numbers representation. So again, this is a collaborative effort with other districts. I want to say thank you to the PR team as well for their help with the tools that I certainly don't have the skill set for. And again, just a shout out to Dr. Varvel for her engagement in that regard. Questions there? All right, moving right along, probably the bigger topic for the evening, and I anticipate one where we'll have some questions, is with regard to a 4-day school week and some research we have going on there. So earlier this evening, from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, we had a staff update, otherwise known as our town hall, that previewed several of these for staff. And so we wanted to share the same here with those in the room and watching online. So a committee has been formed to determine if a 4-day school week is a viable and realistic option for USD 453 for either next year or the 25-26 school year. So I want to say thank you in advance to Amy Sloan, because leading a committee like this is a lot of work, I will tell you. And I appreciate her willingness and ability to lead that. But it's going to be our goal to provide you with an update of the committee's input to the board scheduled this March. The committee has met twice so far and continues to meet in a weekly cadence. So you might be asking, why would the district pursue or consider a 4-day week? And that's a valid question. I will tell you that number one, above all else, is recruitment and retention of staff. As of today, we have 67 vacancies. As of today, 67 vacancies, certified and classified, and a staff of approximately 600. It is designed to attract teachers, but also attract students. And I'm sure you remember that on July 1 of 2024, non-resident enrollment policies become active for all 286 school districts. It's also got the ability to increase collaboration and planning for our teachers, allow for a consistent and equitable PLC time, reduce absences for students and staff, and I believe if done correctly, it can improve the school culture. So I want to let you know that this is one of many ways that we're attempting to address our staffing vacancies and strengthen the future recruiting efforts. I have called this or referenced this as the everything but the kitchen sink. And so again, we don't have any formal recommendations at this point because we're very much in an exploratory phase. But I want to let you know that that is definitely out there and being actively pursued, investigated, researched, etc. So let me pause there for questions on 4-day week.
We have already, as a district, approved the 24-25 school calendar.
That's correct.
You're talking about changing what has already been approved?
Potentially, yes. So great question. Probably the number one question I've had is how would this impact students and families, right? So to that end, I have kind of created a non-negotiable with Mrs. Sloan that whatever day off from school would still have an option for students to attend if parents wanted them to. What we don't want to do is create this massive inconvenience at the last minute. In addition to, I fully understand the concerns parents would have with students not having a safe place to go 1 day a week. So to be clear, students would still have a place to go 5 days a week.
So what would that look like?
That is a very good question that I cannot answer tonight. Not because it's shrouded in mystery, but because we're still very much in an exploratory phase.
And then I do have a question kind of along those lines, just of the what if basket.
Yep.
So let's say it's Friday night's football night. I mean, how does that affect when all the other schools aren't doing it on Friday night, but then you're still asking staff and everybody else to get the kids to the game, to whatnot? There's games throughout the week.
Yep.
Basketball season, things like that. So would they then not be playing in particular sports because they happen to be off on Wednesdays now?
Great question. So day of the week is definitely, I would say, at the top of our what ifs. But I will tell you that we're going to minimize and or eliminate any of those concerns because we do not want to take away from student activities or opportunities.
Right, because other school calendars,
Yep.
when they set up their games, they're on a full schedule calendar. And the only reason why, and I understand it about the retention and recruitment, but I was also on the board when we went to full year education with Lawson.
Sure.
And I had a lot of questions and concerns about that. I wasn't 100% in on it because I just didn't feel like it was really gonna work because I know the strains that it is on the family. If you got this kid here, this one's out, this one's in, that it created a lot of conflicts.
Absolutely.
And I just,
What's
I see
the,
conflicts.
what's the day of the week that you have most absence?
Most absences? That's a good question. I'm going to look at HR for that because I don't know. Mondays, yep.
And then followed by Friday.
Yep.
The weekend days?
Yep. Typically the bookends. You got it.
Would the day be longer? I mean, how do you get all the instruction hours?
Yep. So that's a question I can't answer. So in the state of Kansas, you can elect to go with days or hours. We, as long as that I've ever known, have selected to go with hours. So it's 1,116. Those are counted by minutes. And so if you eliminate days, Mrs. Overby, what you have to do is add minutes typically, right? And so in our case, we would be looking to add anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes potentially, depending on the number of days. So I appreciate the questions. I don't want to encourage those to stop, but I don't want to also try to answer things that are not fully vetted yet. So my request for all of you is, as you have questions, please send those to us, because as this committee's work starts to refine and get more clear, we'll be able to answer those as well as take into consideration maybe things that the committee hasn't thought of. So these are all great thoughts, by the way.
The only questions I had over the weekend from teaching staff regarding this was, if we already have trouble with attendance, and we now are gonna potentially give them fewer days to even attempt to attend, would this further hurt our attendance? And so that's why I was interested in the question of, if it's Monday, which probably matches workforce as well, then, maybe it won't. So are there any other districts that are doing this that we're looking at specifically or working with?
Yep. So I would say in Kansas, we may be the largest that I've heard of entertaining this, as well as the first that I'm aware of in Northeast. This traditionally has made its way through smaller districts. The data I had, this is as of last year to be clear, because they haven't updated this, was there was approximately 40 districts already that had decided. In some cases, they didn't do this recently. Some of them had done it a number of years ago, right? You likely remember the 2008 financial crisis, and otherwise some districts did it from a financial reason and just never shifted back. And so as of today, I believe we would be the largest district I'm aware of. I think you probably recall about a year ago at this time, Independence, Missouri announced that they were going to go. I think they were one of the larger districts in Missouri at that time. So needless to say,
I
we'll
would just think it
be,
would be more complicated with a larger district. There's more moving parts.
there
to
is,
Make a change like that.
there is definitely more moving parts in a larger
And-
district, yes.
I could see where
Yep.
that would work in a smaller, I guess.
Yep.
We'll see.
That would be something I would like to see vetted too, when you were talking about how a district did it because of the finances of how that affects us. Pros, cons, savings versus maybe costing us more.
Sure.
I would like to see that kind of financial analysis.
Good question.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that. I want to make it very clear, the reason we are doing it is not due to financial concerns. Many thanks to Beth and her team for that.
Right, but when we keep talking taxes and increasing taxes on our constituents every year, it would behoove us to be able to have an argument as how this is going to save us money. And then if it doesn't save us money and it costs us money, then they're potentially looking at another tax increase, and that won't fly very
Okay.
well.
Yep. Sorry, I misunderstood. I'm following now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Adams, when does this work group meet next?
So they meet weekly because I am pushing them probably faster than they want to go. And I do apologize, but I am seeing and hearing and feeling the dire need. So again, 600 employees, we're down 67. We're trying to run on 90% of staff, right? So I'm guessing that Mrs. Sloan likely wanted to go slower, but they are meeting every week with the potential, I want to emphasize that word, potential, of going live next year. If we did not go live next year, I think the 25, 26 is definitely a possibility. You may be asked, why am I pushing this so hard? I don't see our 67 number going down. My concern is how long before we eclipse the 100 level vacancy. So that is the reason why I'm asking them to go at light speed. So Amy, I'm looking at you. Wednesdays is when you meet. Is that
We
accurate?
alternate Wednesdays and Thursdays evenings, so that way attendance, and we have a representative from all schools, as well as a member from teaching and learning, a building administrator, and then Mrs. Max.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you for that. Please don't let them stop here. Send them my way and I will get them to Amy. I think she's already got an FAQ document going. And then I've asked her to make regular updates to the board available as well. So look from that from Mr. Potter. All right, I promise I'm almost done. All right, so February 12th, that's your next board meeting. It's just a friendly reminder that we committed to doing one per semester out of this site to get you into the building. So you'll be at the intermediate center and you're gonna get 2 building reports because the one that you didn't get tonight. So you'll get one from the IC for obvious reasons, and then the David Brewer report that was done or moved from last week to tonight. And finally, it is January, as you're well aware, but what you may not be well aware of is that January also is Board Member Recognition Month. So I want to welcome our newest board members, Mrs. Overby. Thank you. Mrs. Wilson cannot be here tonight, but thank you to her as well. But truly, thank you to all 7 of you for your willingness to serve in this capacity of an elected Board of Education and serve this great community. I think it's important to acknowledge the time that you invest on a multi-year basis, and you do it all for a salary of $0. So, yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Carney, that may come as a
Your check's
surprise
in
to
the
you.
mail.
Yeah, your check is in the mail, as they say. But on behalf of the district staff, as well as myself, I just want to say thank you for all that you do and for your service to our community. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Carney.
Regarding the February 12th meeting, where do we park? Where do we enter? Where do we gather?
Oh gosh, you're asking technical questions that I'm not prepared to answer tonight. But Mr. Potter, can we make sure that the board gets all those questions answered, please?
And not just us, but the community as
Yep.
well.
Good questions. We'll work with Mr. Kessler to make sure that that's a plan that works for him, and we'll get that out to you guys and the community as well.
Amy, how much time do we need for negotiations?
10 minutes, please.
Do you want to buy it, please?
What do we, I just wanted that, oh, we got the executive session?
Yeah.
Yeah, we might as well take one. Everybody probably needs a little break, don't they?
Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that we return to open session in this room in 15 minutes. So let's just say 7:45. The board would like to invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, and Beth Maddox, and Robert Hingula into the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Well, I thought you were just taking a drink. 6-0.
And just a reminder, leave your phones out here. Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel pursuant to the exception under the Kansas Open Meetings Act in order to protect the privacy interests of the individuals to be discussed, and that we return to open session in this room in 10 minutes at 7:51. No, I'm
56.
terrible. 56. That's my kid, not me.
Do we have a second?
Bless you.
The board would like to invite Dr. Roth, Amy Sloan, and Robert Hingula.
Second.
I'm sorry, it needs to say Dr. Adams, not Dr. Roth.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor? 6-0. Get the parade going.
Anyway, so we.
The staff report is presented to you.
Give a second. You never done it. It's not.
Excuse us. We got a motion and a second to approve staff report, all in favor? 6-0. Okay. Here, 2 pages.
Meeting dates.
Meeting dates.
Would you like for me to?
Yeah, you can take care of them.
All right, here is a brief preview of upcoming dates of importance here in the district. We'll start with the end of January. So January 31st will be a half day of school, half day of PD. Moving on to the month of February, again, that board meeting will be at 6:00 p.m. at the Warren campus. We'll get details on where to park, enter, etc. in front of that. And Monday, February 19th will be no school in honor of President's Day. Moving along to the month of March, your March board meeting will be off of our regular cadence due to spring break. So it'll be the first Monday, March 4th. Again, 6:00 p.m. But just wanted to alert you ahead of time. It will not be March 11th. It will be earlier that month. March 5th then is the end of third quarter, and March 6th represents a work day and parent-teacher conferences in the PM with no school, as well as March 7th being no school. That then leads straight into spring break, which is March 11th through the 15th. And finally, rounding out the month of March is a non-working holiday on Friday, March 29th.
Next time, unscheduled patron input. We got, what do we have here? Mr. Zach, you want to come up first? Since we got one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dan Zek, and local taxpayer, local residents for 71 years. And I went through Leavenworth schools, my kids, my grandkids, not my great-grandkids. But I'm here, all this information I'm going to speak to you tonight is coming off the KSDE building report card. So you go to the Kansas Department of Education website and you go to building report card. Then you click on performance level. So it has a district and every building in our school district. So Leavenworth means a lot to me, my family, it always has. So according to the website, there's 3,608 kids. So that's why I'm here. So the building report card. So this is the levels 3 and 4 are supposed to be proficient. So in our district, for all the schools, we have 12.23% that are in levels 3 and 4. And you can go to the website and get this information. The state is 31.29%, and that's in math. Then we can go to English language arts. And third and fourth level for the district is 20.61% of our students. The state level is, of all school districts, of the 286 school districts, is 33.17%. Then we go to science, and we do the same thing for the district, and it's 22.42% of the kids in our schools, versus the state is 31.13%. And it also is even broken down to each building in our district. And again, you go to the KSD website, you click on building report card and performance level reports, and you can all do this. This is public. So LHS at math, levels 3 and 4 is 18.15%. English language arts is 26.48%, and science is 30.33. Looks like I won't have time to go through all the school districts, but you can, again, go yourself, and this is a concern of mine. So, and I've been blessed to be able to go through the school, and it was very enjoyable. There is a lot of good going in our school, and it was nice the way I got to go through because they didn't know I was coming. And we just went into the schools. It was very nice, and they let me go wherever I wanted to go. So thank you.
Alan Bridges? Bridger or Bridges?
Okay, hello, I'm Alan Bridges. I'm blessed to have 5 children that graduated here at Leavenworth School District. I have some very serious issues that has occurred here recently that's been going on for quite some time. Kids doing some things they shouldn't be doing at schools, such as snorting candy or other things it could be. Fights that are happening in ISS. I have videos of these that I'm going to be sharing at some point with the correct people, but the biggest issues I'm having now, like I said, my 5 kids are grown and graduating and gone. Now I have grandchildren that I'm worried that we're going to have to come up with some other solution as far as homeschooling or something else, because I'm disgusted of the things that I'm seeing. And this is a part that I'm not used to doing. So, it's very, very tough for me, having grandchildren and everything going, that I'm having to look going into high schools. And right now it's pretty scary to me. These issues are like, the fights in ISS, these are fights that are happening on, where's the teachers? There's no teachers in these videos that I'm having, and it's troublesome to me. And I spoke to one other person in the high school, and it didn't seem to be that big of an issue, but it's clearly very it's just disturbing to me. Like I said, these are videos and all. They're like I said, this is very tough for me because I didn't prepare anything for tonight. This is my first time speaking on this, and having grandchildren that are coming into this, that I'm going to be trying to get them to graduate. I just can't see them graduating at this level with the things that are going on in these schools. And it doesn't seem to be anybody's, it seems like it's just another day. You're just another person that's complained about this or that. And it's, like I said, it's very troublesome. We pay taxes and, just like anybody else. But some of these things that are being exposed are, there's video, there's kids, students, already with the other students making IDs.
15 seconds.
And there's a huge list. I'll definitely be able to come better prepared on the next setting. I'd like to address that, but as of now, I'd like to, let you all know that there's some issues that need to get addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Jenny Wooten? Jenny, is that right?
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak to you this evening. Shakespeare, Chaucer, Frederick Douglass, Toni Morrison, Ray Bradbury, Ernest Hemingway, These are just some of the authors whose works would not be allowed in our high schools under the current wording of the IF policy as it was amended last meeting. I have concerns about this as a parent and as a teacher of over 25 years, 11 of which have been in this district. Transparency does exist. When a book is taught, parents are notified. They have the option to opt out of any book that is taught in a classroom. I received those letters as a parent. And the ultimate authority is the parent. I agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment. Having said that, nonfiction such as Frederick Douglass's narratives would be excluded under this policy. And I have a problem when history starts to be excluded under current policies. It seems apparent to me this policy is intended to target children. Our non-binary students, our students with non-binary parents, and their allies. So why read? That question I think is important. We're asked our why. I have a why. I argue we read to learn about the world around us. I argue that we read to expose ourselves to ideas, those we agree with and those that we don't. That is the essence of a democracy, and I feel like that is extremely important. We read for perspective. We read about the wrongdoing of the past so we do not repeat it. Even if it's not in our student code of conduct, we should read about it. It's important. There is no such thing as political neutrality. It does not exist. We all have biases, and it's laughable to think that we don't. However, when we have words in our policy like appropriate and implied, these are judgment words. Those are not neutral words. And teachers are on the front line of deciding what is appropriate, what is neutral. If it is the intent of this policy to target a group of students, then specify that. If not, then I would argue that I would advise that you trust the professionals who have been doing this very long time with multiple degrees to do their jobs and do them well. If we're not doing our jobs well, then that should also
15 seconds.
I encourage you to create a policy that is not open for interpretation by teachers who want to implement the policies of this district. Thank you.
Thank you. And gets us to board member comments. Let's start with Mrs. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. First, I just want to thank everybody for all their different perspectives that they bring. I appreciate everyone sitting through my book reading earlier. And I have sat here for 2 years, and every month, for the most part, that has been the topic, it seems like, in some way or another, sexuality. And so, since that was not what my goal topic was when I ran for this seat, I have committed to myself to talk about academics. And so, even though we thankfully did have someone already speak about that, I am on the Kansas State Department of Education website, and I'm just going to read one statistic, and this is for all students, all grade levels in math. Let's see, for our district. So in 2022, level 1, which is the lowest level, we had 57.24% of students in that level, which would be the majority of our students. The state level was 34.9%, 34.19%, which is obviously quite a bit lower than 57.24%. So that shows how much worse off than the state average we were. And then for 2023, we actually got worse with that. We're at 58.28%. and the state improved to 33.13%. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh, Mr. Orby?
Okay, first board meeting in the books. Thank you for your patience. I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to serve on the board for the district I love. I have 5 children, all of them pioneers. 4 have graduated and are off doing great things. And the youngest is living his best life at the high school. There's a lot of great things going on in our Leavenworth schools. I had the pleasure of touring the Lost and Early Childhood Center last week and getting to know what's going on with our littles. I look forward to forging relationships and getting to know all of you in this district. I've got a meeting about special ed tomorrow. I'm looking forward to learning about that some more. And I'll always be looking for ways to learn more so that I can serve well. We have some truly exceptional students and dedicated staff, and we've got our challenges too. And some of those were talked about, Vanessa mentioned, and also Mr. Zeck. Those are very real challenges that we need to focus on. And we're also blessed to have people willing to work to meet those challenges. And we'll certainly have our disagreements, but I don't question our community's desire to do what's best for our students. They are the future of our nation. So thank you very much, and stay safe and stay warm.
Ms. Murphy?
I'm going through our gift log, and again, it is amazing at all the donations that have gone in to help, to include some pretty hefty ones that have gone to the auto tech program to help those students be able to do great things on their own to help fix our cars and things like that. I want to recognize and welcome, while they're present here, Mrs. Overby, and I know Mrs. Wilson's not here, but maybe she got to tune in. Welcome to the board. Hope you enjoy it, though there's always a little rough spot everywhere on the road sometimes. It's not always smooth pavement. There are great things that always go on in our district. Not all of us are going to share the same opinions on how things have to be done or what way to go about it. But at no point is anybody trying to disenfranchise anyone. I think they're just trying to find the best path forward so that there's maybe less focus on some things that aren't necessarily as important as math, science, and English. If you can't accomplish those things, you're not going to be able to accomplish and maneuver all the other things you find in life. You have to have those. And you won't be able to navigate everything that you may find as an adult if you can't accomplish these basic skills here. So these scores sometimes are pretty rough to have to hear. And I want us to be able to work harder on achieving that. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with staffing and 67 vacant slots and people being overworked. So we can hope that that's also alleviated as well. If you have the spare time in your life, you're possibly retired, looking something to do to fill your days, you can go online, though the website has changed somewhat. The background check has changed since it has the previous year. That was a little strange to navigate and everything, but it's not something that can't be accomplished, because even I've once again, not that I could substitute because I sat here, so I can't substitute, but I completed my background check again this year, which I have done for several years that we've been in this district. So please feel free to go in to do that, to substitute teach, volunteer in classrooms. That's something that I have noticed that has faded considerably since COVID. in 2020. We don't have all the parental involvement that we had within the classrooms or volunteering, be it for kids' parties or field trips or things like that. And I'd really like to see our families start back that again. I understand if economically you can't because it's rough out there. Economics is not the same it was 3-4 years ago, and you may have more people working more jobs, and that's a whole different factor. But I'd like to see everybody starting to try and contribute and help with the classrooms or show up to the parent nights and teacher meetings and things like that, because they are really important conversations. If you can't make those, see if you can pick up the phone or start an email conversation. That's always going to help. I look forward to all the other things that we do have coming up. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of surprises. And thank you.
Sure, mine will be short. First off, welcome to a new semester and a new year. To our new board members, Ms. Whoopi, thanks for joining us. It's going to be a great time ahead. And to Ms. Wilson, I hope you have a speedy recovery and are feeling better as quick as you can. First off, good luck to all of our drill teams that are competing this weekend in Waitsville. That's a big deal, and there's a lot of new folks out there, and I hope they do the best they can. We'll expect lots of good things when they come back. I'm sure First Sergeant will bring lots and lots of hardware home. Basketball is kicking in. Please come out and support our Pioneers, and of course, come enjoy the pep band because they really work hard and they're great kids. After that, the crazy weather we've had, please be safe, be well, be smart, and if you're not feeling well, don't come to school. But anyway, all the best. Go Pioneers.
I would also like to say I really enjoyed the day that I got to spend with you and Ms. Wilson, Ms. Overby. That was a great time, and I look forward to continuing to work with you over the next several years. I would like to also extend heartfelt hoping that Jessica recovers quickly and is able to join us back again. I know we'll congratulate Maddie later on, but Madison Finch earned quite the distinction. She was one of 2 students in the entire state that were selected to represent at the United States Senate. And so proud of you, Maddie. Great job. You're a great kid. You're going to go far. You'll serve in the Senate one day, I'm sure. And then, basketball, all the winter sports season is in effect. Catch a game if you can. Our Pioneers are doing great things. We have to get the kids at school. We have to want them to be at school. We have to provide quality programs outside of the classroom in order to entice them to want to be there, to want to learn, to engage, to feel accepted and involved. And I know, Ms. Reed, it seemed like you were fishing for somebody to say that they liked and thought those books are appropriate and necessary. Absolutely, I do. I will take your bait. I think they are necessary for our students to have that conversation and have that open dialogue with their families to discuss how that pertains to them if it does. And if it doesn't, fantastic. It doesn't matter to them. And yes, gender identity starts questioning very, very early if that is a question for them. And that is not for us as board members to set policy against. That is for family values and morals to happen within families. So that's all I'm going to say.
Nothing about
I'm
that.
done.
I'm a little hoarse, but my wife has this thing where when I come in the house, I got to say something positive first. I can't say anything negative, or I get no supper or lunch or whatever. And I think that's what our society's at these days. We focus on the negatives more than the positives. I mean, when you look back at all of the good things that have happened in this school district over as long as I've been on the board, I mean, we got to be proud of that. And we also, you can't just take numbers and think that's the salvation of everything. You got to look at the communities and the support they have in their schools, with the families. And we haven't had that in this community. I've been here a long time, a little longer than Danny. But those kinds of things we don't ever want to look at or talk about. But we have a graduation rate that's good with the state, up there 80, 90% almost, correct? We've had terrific outcomes with our ROTC program, Miss Sandstein's classes and DECA. When Mrs. Strager was here with her computer classes thing. I mean, those are the things that we don't get to focus on because it seems like it's all negative. And yes, Leavenworth, we're so proud to put big billboards up, spend some time in Leavenworth. We got a lot of prisons. And so when you look at that, and I worked in all the prisons in this town, those families travel with those inmates for the majority. So that's what we're dealing with. If everybody thinks that's easy, I invite you to get a degree in education and come teach here in this district, because that's what our teachers are dealing with, and we're shorthanded on top of it. So, let's try to push some positive now and then, and maybe the kids will pick up on that too. So that's all I got to say about that. And the meeting's now adjourned.